My name is Robert Callahan. I'm 71 years old, and I live in Des Moines, Iowa. If you're watching this, you already know something went terribly wrong with the one person I thought would never let me down. Before we go any further, do me a favor. Hit that like button if you're over 60 and you've ever felt invisible to your own family. Drop a comment telling me where you're watching from and what time it is where you are. I want to know I'm not alone in this. And subscribe, because what I'm about to tell you needs to be heard by every parent who thinks sacrifice guarantees loyalty. I spent 24 years in the Air Force, logistics officer, not the glamorous part. No fighter jets, no medals on the evening news. I moved supplies, planned routes, made sure people got what they needed when they needed it. You learn something in that work. Every mission needs a contingency plan, backup fuel, alternate landing sites, redundant communications. I could plot weather, enemy fire, mechanical failure. What I couldn't plan for was the human heart. I was widowed at 42. Cancer took my wife Sarah in 8 months, fast and mean, left me with a 13-year-old daughter named Emily and a 3-bedroom house that suddenly felt like a warehouse. No family nearby. Sarah's parents were already gone. Mine lived in Florida and barely remembered my birthday. So I became both parents. I stayed in. Had to. The pension was our future, and Emily needed stability more than she needed me at every soccer game. I made it work. I learned French braid hair from a YouTube video on a laptop in Ramstein. I coached her through algebra homework via Skype from Kuwait, 9 hours ahead, my coffee and her bedtime. I flew home for her 16th birthday and surprised her at school. The look on her face, I can still see it. I kept every report card, every photo, every Mother's Day card she made said, "To the best dad mom ever." They're in a box in my closet, chronological, labeled by year. I paid for her college, state school, but still. 4 years, books, a decent apartment so she wouldn't have to work full-time and tank her GPA. I paid for her wedding to a man I didn't trust, but kept my mouth shut because she loved him. I paid for her divorce lawyer 2 years later when I turned out to be right. I never asked for thanks. I just wanted her to be there when I finally needed her. 3 weeks ago, I was raking leaves in my backyard. October in Iowa. The air smells like wood smoke and cold coming. I bent down to bag up the pile and felt something tear inside my chest. Not pain, exactly. Pressure, like someone was sitting on my sternum. I made it inside, called 911, spent 6 hours in the ER. The cardiologist was a young guy, calm and efficient, reminded me of the junior officers I used to train. He pulled up the imaging on a screen and pointed to my heart valve. "Mr. Callahan, your aortic valve is failing. 90% stenosis. We need to operate within days, not weeks." I asked him what happens if we wait. He didn't blink. "You'll die." I logged more miles pushing a stroller than most men do in a lawnmower. That's not a complaint. That's just the truth. When Sarah died, I didn't have time to fall apart. Emily needed lunches packed. She needed permission slips signed. She needed someone to sit in those tiny chairs at parent-teacher conferences and nod while Mrs. Henderson explained that Emily was a delight but could focus better during silent reading. I did it all. When I deployed, I left care instructions like they were flight plans, emergency contacts, meal schedules. The neighbor, Mrs. Kowalski, checked on her every day. I called every night I could, even when it meant waking up at 0300 in a tent that smelled like diesel and sand. I'd hear Emily's voice, small and sleepy, and I'd tell her I loved her, that I'd be home soon, that everything was going to be okay. I taught her to drive in an empty Kmart parking lot on a Sunday morning. She stalled out 6 times. I didn't raise my voice once. I just said, "Try again, sweetheart. You've got this." When she finally made it around the whole lot without jerking the wheel, she looked at me with tears in her eyes and said, "I wish Mom could see this." I said, "She can." I meant it. I went to her high school graduation alone, sat in the bleachers surrounded by families, couples holding hands, grandparents with cameras. I clapped louder than anyone when they called her name. Afterward, she ran to me and hugged me so hard I thought my ribs would crack. She said, "We did it, Dad." Not, "I did it." I paid for college without complaint. She wanted to study marketing at the University of Denver, far from Iowa, far from me. I drove her out there myself, 17 hours, her entire life packed into a U-Haul trailer. I helped her set up her dorm room, hung posters, built a bookshelf from IKEA that had instructions in 3 languages, none of them helpful. When it was time to leave, she cried. I didn't. I just hugged her and said, "Call me every Sunday." She did. For a while, I paid for her wedding to Marcus. Big event, 200 people, open bar. I walked her down the aisle and handed her off to a man who worked in tech and talked too much about cryptocurrency. I had a bad feeling, ignored it, told myself I was being overprotective. 2 years later, she called me sobbing. He'd cheated. She was filing. Could I help with the lawyer? I wired the money that afternoon. Through it all, every deployment, every holiday alone, every tuition payment, every crisis, I never asked for thanks. I didn't need gratitude. I needed to know I'd raised someone who understood what loyalty meant, who understood that love isn't a transaction, but it is a responsibility. I thought I had. I really did. But 3 weeks ago, when I called her from the cardiologist's office and told her they were scheduling open heart surgery, I learned something I should have planned for. The last thing I heard before the dial tone was laughter in the airport bar. Let me back up. I collapsed in my backyard on a Thursday. Spent the night in the hospital hooked to monitors that beeped every time my heart did something the machine didn't like. By Friday afternoon, the cardiologist had a plan. Valve replacement surgery. The following Wednesday, 7-hour procedure, 3-day ICU stay, 6-week recovery. He asked if I had someone who could stay with me afterward. I said yes. I had Emily. I called her that afternoon from the hospital room. She answered on the 3rd ring. I could hear noise in the background. Voices, announcements, rolling luggage. "Hey, Dad, what's up?" I told her, calmly, no drama. "Emily, I'm in the hospital. My heart valve is failing. They're operating on Wednesday. I'd like you to be here." There was a pause. Not long, maybe 3 seconds, but I felt every one of them. "Wednesday? Dad, I'm literally at the airport. Jess's wedding is this weekend. Cabo. I'm the maid of honor. I've had this planned for 6 months." I said, "I understand that, but this is my heart, Emily. They can't wait." Another pause, longer this time. I could hear a gate announcement in the background. Boarding Group A. "Dad, I'm so sorry. I really am. But Jess would kill me if I bailed now. I'm at a wedding party. The bachelorette was last weekend. I've already paid for the hotel. Can you push it to next week?" I said, "No, I can't." She exhaled, sharp and frustrated. Okay. Look, I'll FaceTime you before the surgery, okay? And I'll fly out right after I get back. I promise. It's just 4 days. You'll be fine. You're tough." I wanted to say a lot of things. I wanted to ask her if she remembered who drove 17 hours to move her into college, who paid for the divorce lawyer, who sat alone at her wedding because Sarah wasn't there to sit with me. Instead, I said, "All right, Emily, have a good trip. Love you, Dad." Click. I sat there holding the phone for a long time. The room was quiet, except for the monitors and the hum of the fluorescent lights. A nurse came in to check my vitals. She was older, maybe 60, kind eyes. She asked, "Is your daughter coming?" I lied. "She's on her way." The nurse smiled. "Good. You'll want someone here." After she left, I opened my phone. I don't use social media much, but Emily posts constantly. Instagram, Facebook, all of it. I clicked on her profile. The first photo was from 2 hours ago. Her and 3 other women at the airport bar, margaritas, sunglasses, big smiles. The caption said, "Cabo or bust. Living my best life. 47 likes already." I stared at that glowing screen harder than I ever stared down a flight line deadline. I didn't cry. I don't do that anymore. But something inside me shifted. Something permanent. Saturday came, then Sunday, then Monday. I moved from the ER to a cardiac ward on the 4th floor. Room 412. Single bed, thin blanket, a window that looked out over the parking lot. I watched cars come and go, families arriving with flowers and balloons, a man my age being pushed in a wheelchair by his son. both of them laughing about something. I kept my phone on the table next to the bed, screen up, just in case. Emily didn't call. She posted, though, Saturday, a photo of her and her friends on the beach, drinks in hand, ocean behind them. Paradise found! 63 likes. Sunday, a video of the wedding ceremony, sunset in the background, everyone crying happy tears. So beautiful. Love you, Jess. 92 likes. Monday, a group shot at the resort pool, everyone in swimsuits, arms around each other. Best friends, best trip, best life. Never want this to end. 108 likes. I didn't comment. I didn't like them. I just watched. The nurses were kind. They checked on me every few hours, adjusted medications, brought me food I didn't eat. One of them, the older woman from before, asked again on Monday night. Still no family? I said. She's out of town. She'll be here soon. The nurse didn't say anything, just nodded, but I saw it in her eyes. She knew. Tuesday morning, the anesthesiologist came by to go over the procedure. Young guy, confident, talked me through the risks. Infection, stroke, bleeding, death. I signed the consent forms. He asked if I had someone to make medical decisions if I couldn't. I said, my daughter has power of attorney. He asked, will she be here tomorrow? I said, yes. Another lie. That night, I couldn't sleep. I kept thinking about the box in my closet, the report cards, the photos, the Mother's Day cards. 29 years of proof that I'd done everything right. I thought about Sarah, about what she'd say if she were here. She always believed the best in people. She'd probably tell me Emily was young, that she didn't understand, that she'd come around. But Sarah had been gone a long time, and I'd learned something she never had to. People show you who they are when it costs them something. At 2 a.m., I picked up my phone, opened Emily's Instagram again. Her most recent post was from 6 hours ago. A selfie at the airport, boarding pass in hand, caption, back to reality tomorrow, worth every second. No mention of me, no thinking of my dad, no prayers for his surgery. Nothing. I closed the app. I opened my contacts, scrolled to my lawyer's name, and I made a decision I should have made years ago. At 11:47 p.m., I muted my only child for the first time in 42 years too late. Tuesday night. Surgery scheduled for Wednesday morning at 6. I should have been sleeping, but sleep doesn't come easy when your chest feels like it's wrapped in barbed wire and your daughter is dancing in Cabo. I opened Instagram one more time. I don't know why. Maybe I thought there'd be something, a message, a post that said, thinking of Dad tonight. Something. Instead, there was a video. Emily in a dress I'd never seen, gold and shimmery, spinning on a dance floor with her friends. Music pounding, lights flashing. Her mouth opened in laughter, head thrown back, arms in the air. The caption, when the DJ plays your song. Best night ever. I watched it 3 times. The first time, I felt anger, hot and sharp, the kind that makes your jaw clench. The second time, I felt something worse, sadness, the kind that sits in your stomach like a stone. The third time, I felt nothing at all. And that's when I knew. I deleted Instagram from my phone. Didn't hesitate, just held my finger on the icon until it started shaking. Pressed the X, confirmed. Gone. I lay there in the dark, listening to the heart monitor beep, and I started remembering things I'd worked very hard not to remember. Her 30th birthday. I flew to Denver, took her to dinner at the restaurant she'd mentioned 3 times on the phone. She showed up 40 minutes late, ordered a salad and checked her phone the entire time, left early for drinks with friends. I paid the bill and drove back to my hotel. Father's Day 2 years ago. No call, no text. I saw her post a photo of brunch with Marcus's dad. Happy Father's Day to this legend. 64 likes. Her divorce. She called me crying at midnight, asked for money for the lawyer, talked for 90 minutes about Marcus's betrayal, his lies, how she never saw it coming. I listened to every word. Send the money. She thanked me. Then 3 months later, when I called to see how she was doing, she sounded annoyed. Dad, I'm at yoga. Can I call you back? She never did. Christmas last year. I invited her to Des Moines. I offered to pay for the flight. She said she was staying in Denver. Too much going on with work. I spent December 25th watching bowl games and eating Chinese takeout. At 9 p.m., she sent a text. "Merry Christmas, Dad. Love you." No phone call. Just 7 words and an emoji. I'd made excuses for all of it. She's busy. She's building a life. She's young. She doesn't understand yet. When she has kids of her own, she'll get it. But lying there in that hospital bed, chest aching, monitor beeping, waiting for surgery that might kill me while she posted videos of tequila shots and dance floors, I finally understood something. She did understand. She just didn't care. I whispered it to the empty room, to the dark window, to no one. "I'm done waiting for crumbs." My voice didn't shake. My hands didn't tremble. I felt lighter than I had in years. Tom said, "You sure?" I told him, "I've been unsure for 42 years. It feels good to finally be certain." I called him at 2:14 in the morning. I didn't care about the time. Some things can't wait. Tom Whitaker. We served together in Germany back in '89. Stayed friends after we both got out. He went to law school on the GI Bill. Built a practice in Des Moines handling estates and wills. Good man. Honest. Don't waste words. He answered on the 5th ring. Voice thick with sleep. "Bob? What's wrong?" I said, "I need you to draw up a new will. Tonight." Silence. Then, "Tonight? Bob, it's 2 in the morning. I know what time it is. I'm having open heart surgery in 4 hours. I need this done before they wheel me in." I heard him. Sit up. Bed springs creaking. "Jesus. Are you okay? Where are you?" "Methodist Hospital. Room 412. And no, I'm not okay. That's why I'm calling." I told him everything. The diagnosis. The surgery. The call to Emily. Cabo. The Instagram posts. The dancing video. He listened without interrupting. That's one thing I've always appreciated about Tom. He knows when to be quiet. When I finished, he said, "Bob, I get it. I do. But you're in a hospital bed on morphine 12 hours before major surgery. This isn't the time to make life-changing decisions." I said, "Tom, I've never been clearer about anything in my life. What do you want to do?" "I want to disinherit her. Everything. The house, the 401k, the life insurance, the mineral rights in North Dakota. All of it. I want it to go to Freedom Forge Homes. That's the nonprofit we started in 2009. Veterans Housing Foundation. Builds small homes for wounded vets who need accessible, affordable places to live. Tom's on the board. We've built 11 houses so far, raised most of the money ourselves through fundraisers and private donations." Tom was quiet for a long moment. "Bob, that's $800,000, give or take. $847,000. I checked the statements yesterday. That's Emily's inheritance. That's her mother's house." I said, "Sarah's gone. And Emily made her choice. She chose a beach party over her father's life. I'm choosing men who actually earned something." Another pause. Longer this time. Then Tom said, "You sure about this? Because once you sign, once it's witnessed and notarized, it's ironclad. She can contest it, but she won't win. Not with the language I'll use." I said, "I've been unsure for 42 years. It feels good to finally be certain." Tom exhaled. "All right, give me an hour. I'll be there at 4 with the paperwork and a notary." "Thank you, Tom." "Bob?" "Yeah? For what it's worth, I think you're doing the right thing." I said, "I know I am." I hung up and stared at the ceiling. The monitor beeped. The IV dripped. And for the first time in 3 days, I smiled. I left her exactly what she left me in that hospital room. Nothing. Tom arrived at 3:52 a.m. with a laptop, a briefcase, and a notary named Margaret, who looked like she'd done this 1,000 times and didn't ask unnecessary questions. She set up a portable scanner on the bedside table while Tom pulled up a chair and opened a blank document. He said, "Let's go through this piece by piece. I want to make sure you understand what you're doing." I said, "I understand perfectly. Let's get started." We went line by line. The house on Maple Street. 3 bedrooms, 2 baths, paid off in 2003, appraised at $240,000. To Freedom Forge Homes. The 401k from my years with Lockheed Martin after I retired from the service. $287,000. To Freedom Forge Homes. The life insurance policy. $250,000. To Freedom Forge Homes. The mineral rights in North Dakota I bought in the 90s when nobody wanted them, generating $200 a month now, to Freedom Forge homes, savings accounts, CDs, the truck in the garage, all of it, to Freedom Forge homes. Tom typed without comment, his face neutral and professional. Then he said, "What about Emily?" I said, "She gets the family Bible. It was her mother's. She should have that." Tom nodded. "Anything else?" I said, $1. Tom looked up. $1? That's right, $1. So she cannot claim she was forgotten or overlooked. I want it written that I deliberately chose to leave her $1 and the Bible. No room for misinterpretation. Tom almost smiled. "That's smart. Courts respect specificity." He typed it in. "Read it back to me. To my daughter, Emily Rose Callahan, I leave the family Bible that belonged to her mother, Sarah Elizabeth Callahan, and the sum of $1, $1, so that she may know she was not forgotten, but rather remembered and consciously provided for in this document." I said, "Perfect." Margaret, the notary, spoke for the first time. "Mr. Callahan, do you understand that this will effectively disinherit your daughter from the bulk of your estate?" I said, "I do." "And you're doing this of your own free will, without coercion?" "I am." "And you're of sound mind?" I looked at her. "Ma'am, I'm on morphine for pain, but my mind has never been clearer. I know exactly what I'm doing and why." She nodded. "Just have to ask." Tom printed the document. 5 pages. He handed me a pen, my own pen, the one I'd carried for 20 years, a gift from Sarah the year before she died. I signed on the last page, "Robert J. Callahan, Colonel, USAF, ready," the same signature I'd used on deployment orders, promotion recommendations, letters of commendation, the signature that meant something. Margaret notarized it. Tom folded it into his briefcase. I handed the pen back to Tom and said, "Tell the foundation the first house is already paid for. Use whatever's left from the life insurance." Tom's voice was quiet. "I will," I said. "I carried her when she couldn't walk. She can carry herself now." He didn't argue. The last thing I saw before the anesthesia was the clock, 5:42 a.m., the exact minute I stopped being a father and started being free. At 5:30, they came to prepare me for surgery. 2 nurses, calm and efficient, checking IVs, shaving my chest, going through the final checklist. Tom and Margaret had left an hour earlier, the will safely filed and copied. Everything is legal. Everything is final. One of the nurses asked if I had any last requests before they took me down. I said, "No, I'm ready." She smiled. "Your daughter is coming?" I said, "No." She didn't ask why, just nodded and squeezed my hand. They wheeled the bed into the hallway, fluorescent lights sliding past overhead, ceiling tiles, fire sprinklers, exit signs, the same view every patient sees on their way to something they might not come back from. I wasn't scared. I should have been. 71 years old, bad heart, 7-hour surgery, 3 days in the ICU if everything went right. Plenty of men my age don't wake up, but I felt lighter than I had in decades. The elevator doors opened. They wheeled me in. The nurse pressed the button for the surgical floor. The doors closed. In that quiet moment, I thought about Emily, not the woman in Cabo drinking margaritas, the little girl in pigtails who used to sit on my lap and make me read Goodnight Moon 5 times in a row, the teenager who cried on my shoulder when her boyfriend broke up with her. The young woman hugged me at her college graduation and said, "We did it, Dad." I'd loved all of those versions of her, but those versions were gone. The person she'd become, selfish, careless, absent. That person had made her choice, and I'd made mine. The elevator stopped. The doors opened. They wheeled me into the pre-op area. Bright lights, machines beeping, the surgical team in their scrubs and masks, moving around me with practiced efficiency. The anesthesiologist appeared above me, same young guy from before. He said, "We're going to get started, Mr. Callahan. Count backward from 10 for me." I said, 10, 9, 8. The room started to blur, sounds fading, lights dimming. I looked at the clock on the wall, 5:42 a.m. I thought, this is it. This is the moment everything changes. If I die, Emily gets $1 and a Bible. If I live, she gets the same thing. Either way, I'm free. I reached 7, then 6, then nothing. When I woke up later that evening in the ICU, tubes in my throat, machines breathing for me, pain radiating through my chest like fire, the first thing I did was look for Emily. She wasn't there. The second thing I did was smile, because I knew she never would be, and I was finally, completely, okay with that. She walked in smelling like coconut sunscreen and somebody else's money. 6 weeks post-surgery. November in Iowa, the kind of cold that gets into your bones and doesn't leave. I was sitting in my recliner, the same one I'd sat in for 20 years, wearing a cardigan Sarah bought me in 2001. Recovery was slow. They'd sawed through my sternum, cracked my chest open like a tackle box, replaced a valve, and wired me back together with metal that set off airport detectors. I moved like an old man because I was an old man, carefully, deliberately. Every breath reminded me what I'd survived. The doorbell rang at 2:17 p.m. on a Tuesday. I wasn't expecting anyone. Tom had stopped by Sunday with groceries. Mrs. Kowalski checked on me Wednesdays. The visiting nurse came on Fridays. I got up slowly, put my hand on the armrest, and walked to the door. Through the frosted glass, I saw a shape, female, familiar. I opened the door. Emily stood on my porch, tanned like a resort commercial, hair lighter than I remembered, wearing a puffy jacket that probably cost more than my monthly utilities. She held a gift bag with tissue paper poking out the top. "Dad, oh my God, you look great!" She stepped forward and hugged me before I could react. Careful, at least. She didn't squeeze hard, but her enthusiasm felt rehearsed, like she'd practiced it in the car. I didn't hug back. I just stood there with my arms at my sides. She pulled away, still smiling. "Can I come in? It's freezing out here." I stepped aside. She walked past me into the living room, looking around like she was cataloging changes. There weren't any. Same furniture, same photos on the mantel, same life she'd left behind to go drink margaritas. She set her purse on the couch and turned to face me. "You really do look good, Dad." I was so worried. I closed the door, didn't say anything, just watched her. She filled the silence the way she always did. "I'm so sorry I couldn't be here for the surgery. I felt terrible the whole time, but Jess understood. She said her dad had surgery once and he was totally fine. And you are. Look at you, up and walking around." I still didn't speak. She glanced at the gift bag she'd set on the coffee table. "Oh, I brought you something. We went to Italy after Cabo, just a quick 4-day thing, Rome and Florence, and I saw this and thought of you." She pulled out a bottle of olive oil, dark green glass, fancy label, ribbon around the neck. "It's from Tuscany. The guy at the shop said it's the best in the region. I thought you could use it for cooking or whatever." She handed it to me like she'd just solved world hunger. I took it. I turned it over in my hands. The price sticker was still on the bottom. $24, about $29. I looked at her. She was still smiling. I said, "Thank you." She exhaled, relieved. "Of course. So can I sit? I've been driving for like 3 hours." I gestured to the couch. She sat. I stayed standing. That bottle of oil cost more than any get-well card she never sent. Emily settled into the couch, crossing her legs, getting comfortable. She looked around again, this time with a slight frown. "You haven't decorated for Christmas yet?" I said. "It's November." "Yeah, but you usually start early. Remember when you used to put lights up the weekend after Thanksgiving?" I remembered. I also remembered doing it alone every year. She didn't wait for an answer. She never did. "So, Dad, the wedding was incredible. I mean, truly magical. The ceremony was on this cliff overlooking the ocean, and the sunset was perfect. Like, perfect. Jess cried, her husband cried, everyone cried. And the reception. They had this DJ who flew in from LA, and the food was insane. Fresh ceviche, these little taco things, a whole dessert bar with churros." She pulled out her phone, started scrolling. "Oh, and we met this influencer. She has like 2 million followers, and she was so cool. We all went out after the reception, hit this club on the beach. I have videos. Want to see?" I said, "No." She looked up, surprised. "Oh, okay." She put the phone away. An awkward silence settled between us. She tried again. "And then Italy was amazing. Rome is just, the history, you know? We did the Colosseum, the Vatican, all the touristy stuff. Florence was my favorite though. The art, the architecture. We stayed in this villa outside the city. I posted some pictures. Did you see them? I said. I deleted Instagram. Her eyebrows went up. You deleted it? Why? I didn't answer. She shifted on the couch, uncomfortable now. Her eyes flicked to my chest, where the scar was hidden under my shirt and cardigan. She didn't ask about it. Didn't ask how the surgery went, how long I was in the ICU, whether I had complications, whether I was in pain. She looked at the olive oil bottle on the coffee table instead. I really thought you'd like that. The guy said it's award-winning. I said, I'm sure it's very nice. Another silence. Longer this time. She finally said, You're awfully quiet, Dad. I looked at her, really looked at her, at the tan that came from a beach I'd never see, at the jacket that cost more than my electric bill, at the manicured nails and the expensive haircut and the casual smile that expected everything to be fine. I said, just listening to see if I hear any regret. Still waiting. Her smile faltered. Regret? About what? I didn't answer. Just walked to the kitchen, filled the kettle, and set it on the stove. She followed me to the doorway. Dad, are you mad at me? I said. Do you think I should be? She crossed her arms. I said I was sorry about the surgery. What else do you want me to say? I turned the burner on. I watched the flame catch. Nothing, Emily. I don't want you to say anything. She talked about granite countertops while my sternum was still wired together. We sat at the kitchen table. I drank black coffee. Emily had tea with honey, the same way her mother used to drink it. She talked for 20 minutes straight, about her job in marketing, about some campaign she was running for a startup, about her boyfriend Trevor who worked in finance and drove a Tesla and had connections. Then she got to the real reason she'd driven 3 hours. So, Dad, Trevor and I have been looking at houses. I sipped my coffee, said nothing. We found this amazing place in Littleton, mid-century modern, totally renovated, 3 bedrooms, 2.5 baths. The kitchen is to die for, marble countertops, Viking range, one of those big islands everyone wants now. She pulled out her phone again, showed me photos. I didn't look closely. It's listed at $485,000, which is actually a steal for the neighborhood. But here's the thing. We need to move fast. There are already 2 other offers, and we're so close. We've got $40,000 saved, and Trevor's parents are giving us $25,000. We just need a little more for the down payment. She paused, looked at me expectantly. I said, How much more? $60,000. She said it casually, like $60,000 was pocket change. I know it sounds like a lot, but it's actually a really good investment. Property values in that area are going up like crazy, and we'd pay you back, obviously. We're both making good money. It's just that with Trevor's student loans and my car payment, we can't get approved for a higher mortgage without a bigger down payment. I set my coffee cup down. You want me to give you $60,000? Well, don't give up. More like, invest. You'd basically be helping us get started. And I mean, you've got plenty, right? This place is paid off. You've got your pension, Social Security, all that. It's not like you need it. I looked at her. She was smiling. Confidence. She genuinely believed this was reasonable. I said, I had plenty. Past tense. She laughed. What do you mean? You're not going broke buying olive oil. I didn't laugh. Her smile faded. Dad, I'm serious. This is a huge opportunity for us. Trevor and I are building a life together. Don't you want to help with that? I stood up slowly, hand on the table for support. My chest ached. The sternum hadn't fully healed yet. Wouldn't for another 6 weeks. I walked to my desk in the corner of the living room, opened the top drawer, pulled out a manila envelope. Emily followed me, still talking. I know you're probably still recovering and everything, but this can't wait. The sellers want an answer by Friday. If we don't move now, we lose it. And honestly, Dad, after everything you've done for me, college, the wedding, the divorce, this would just be one more thing. The last thing, I promise. After this, I won't ask for anything else. I turned around, held out the envelope. You're right, I said. You won't. The door hit the frame harder than any insurgent mortar I ever heard. Emily took the envelope, still smiling, still thinking this was going her way. What's this? I said. Open it. She pulled out the document. 5 pages, stapled, official letterhead from Tom's law firm. Her eyes scanned the first page, confused. This is a will. Your will. Why are you? I said. Page 4. Paragraph 7. Read it out loud. She flipped to page 4. Started reading silently. I watched her face change. The confusion became a shock. The shock became disbelief. Her voice came out quiet, strangled. To my daughter, Emily Rose Callahan, I leave the family Bible that belonged to her mother, Sarah Elizabeth Callahan, and the sum of $1. She stopped, looked up at me. This is a joke. I said, keep reading. She looked back down. Her hands were shaking now, so that she may know she was not forgotten but rather remembered and consciously provided for in this document. The pages slipped from her hands, fell to the floor. You're leaving me $1? $1? I said. And the Bible. Are you out of your mind? Where's everything else going? Freedom Forge Homes. Veterans Housing Foundation. Her face went red. You're giving my inheritance to strangers? I said. I'm giving it to the men who earned it. She started crying. Not sad crying, angry crying. The kind that came with a raised voice and accusations. This is because I didn't come to your surgery, isn't it? You're punishing me because I had a wedding. I said. I'm not punishing you. I'm just not rewarding you anymore. I'm your daughter. You were my daughter when I was alone in that hospital room. You were my daughter when you posted videos of yourself dancing while I was in the ICU. You're my daughter now, asking me for $60,000 like the last 6 weeks didn't happen. She was sobbing now, mascara running. You're cruel. You're a cruel old man. I said. Cruel would have been letting you dance at a wedding while I died alone. This is just fair. She grabbed her purse, snatched the document off the floor, shoved it back in the envelope. You'll regret this. I'll contest it. I'll fight you. I said. Tom made sure you can't win, but you're welcome to try. She walked to the door, stopped, turned around one last time. I hope you die alone, Dad. I said. I already did. 6 weeks ago. You just weren't there to notice. She left. The door slammed so hard, my war medals rattled on the wall. I stood there in the silence, and I felt nothing but peace. I traded a daughter's greed for 20 veterans' futures. Best deal I ever made. March came cold and wet. Iowa mud season. When the ground thaws and everything turns to soup. I stood in a field in Ankeny, 20 minutes north of Des Moines, wearing my old Air Force windbreaker and boots I hadn't worn in 5 years. 50 people gathered around a staked-out foundation, veterans in wheelchairs, board members from Freedom Forge, local news with cameras. Tom stood beside me, holding a golden shovel, the ceremonial kind they use for groundbreakings, shiny and useless for actual work. This was house number 12, but it was the first one fully funded by a single donor, by me. Tom stepped up to the microphone they'd set up on a folding table. Ladies and gentlemen, thank you for coming. Today we break ground on a fully accessible, mortgage-free home for a veteran who gave everything for this country. This house is special. It's being built because one man, one anonymous donor, decided that the men and women who served deserve more than our thanks. They deserve a foundation. People clapped. A few veterans cheered. Tom continued. This donor knows what it means to be abandoned, to give everything and receive nothing, and instead of becoming bitter, he chose to build something that will outlast all of us. He looked at me. I shook my head slightly. He'd wanted to use my name. I told him absolutely not. Tom smiled and handed me the shovel. Sir, would you like to do the honors? I took it. I walked to the marked corner of the foundation. The mud sucked at my boots. I looked at the veterans watching me. Young men, most of them. Some missing legs, some missing arms. One kid couldn't have been older than 25, burn scars covering half his face. They were all smiling. I pushed the shovel into the mud, lifted a small pile, tossed it aside. The crowd erupted, cheering, clapping, a few whistles. A veteran in a wheelchair, older guy, Vietnam-era patch on his jacket, rolled up next to me and shook my hand. Thank you, brother. You don't know what this means. I said, I think I do. The news reporter approached with a microphone. Sir, can we get a statement? Why did you decide to fund this house? I looked at the camera, at the red light blinking. I said, Because some people take it without asking, and some people give everything without being asked. I wanted to make sure the second group has a place to call home. She asked, "What made this cause so personal to you?" I thought about Emily, about the hospital room, about the dancing video and the olive oil and the $60,000 ask. I said, "I learned the hard way that family isn't always blood. Sometimes it's the people who show up." My eyes burned, not from pain this time, from something else, something I hadn't felt in a very long time. Pride. Tom put his hand on my shoulder. "You did good, Bob." I looked at the foundation stakes, at the mud, at the beginning of something real. I said, "Yeah, I think I finally did. I carried one child who never looked back. Now 20 call me Pop and mean it." The house took 4 months to build. I went every Saturday, watched the progress. Framing, drywall, electrical, plumbing. The contractors were good. Local guys who gave Freedom Forge a discount because half of them were vets themselves. In July, we held the dedication ceremony. The recipient was Sergeant Luis Ramirez, Marine Corps, 29 years old, double amputee. IED in Helmand Province took both legs below the knee. He'd been living in a second-floor apartment in Waterloo, struggling with stairs, struggling with independence, struggling with purpose. Now he stood, prosthetic legs solid beneath him, in front of a 3-bedroom ranch with ramps, wide doorways, roll-in shower, and a backyard big enough for his 4-year-old daughter to play. Tom handed him the keys. Luis stared at them like they might disappear. His wife, Maria, was crying. Their daughter, Sophia, tugged on his hand, asking if they could go inside. Luis looked at me. Tom had finally told him who funded it. He walked over, steady, confident, and extended his hand. I shook it, felt the metal and carbon fiber of his prosthetic grip. He said, "Sir, I don't have words." I said, "You don't need them." "No, I do. Because of you, I get to raise my little girl under my own roof. I get to be a father in a place built for me. You gave me my dignity back." His voice cracked on the last word. I said, "You never lost it, son. You just needed a foundation." He laughed, wiped his eyes. "Tom told me you were in the Air Force. Logistics, right? 24 years. Well, Pop, you just executed the best supply drop of my life." I blinked. "What did you call me?" He looked embarrassed. "Oh, sorry, sir. I didn't mean—" I said, "Just Robert. You don't have to call me Pop." He grinned. "No, sir. It's Pop now. You earned it." Maria came over with Sophia. The little girl looked up at me with huge brown eyes. "Are you the man who gave us our house?" I knelt down, slowly, my sternum still stiff, and said, "I helped, but your daddy earned it." She hugged me without warning, small arms around my neck, fierce and certain. When she let go, Maria said, "You're coming to dinner next Sunday. No arguments." Luis nodded. "That's an order, Pop." I stood up. I looked at them, at their house, at the beginning of their real life. I said, "I'll bring steaks." That night, driving home in the dark, windows down, radio playing low, I thought about Emily, about the $847,000 she'd expected, about the house she'd wanted me to buy, and I smiled, because I'd bought a house after all, just not for her. I spent 71 years trying to earn one person's respect. Turns out, 29 grateful warriors gave it for free. Saturdays became sacred. Every week, I'd load up my truck with groceries, steaks, chicken, burgers, sometimes ribs if I was feeling ambitious, and drive to whichever house we were working on. The veterans would show up, tools in hand, ready to build. Freedom Forge had a model. The recipients helped construct their own homes when they could. Sweat equity. It gave them ownership, pride, purpose. The ones who couldn't swing a hammer did other things. Painted, landscaped, cleaned up job sites. I manned the grill. It started as a practical thing. Someone had to feed the crew. But it became more than that. It became tradition. They'd work all morning, framing walls, hanging drywall, installing cabinets, and around noon, I'd fire up the Weber and start cooking. The smell of charcoal and searing meat would drift across the lot. One by one, they'd wander over, grab a plate, sit in lawn chairs or on coolers, and talk. Not small talk, real talk. They'd argue about football, Chiefs versus Packers, whether college ball was better than the NFL. They'd swap deployment stories, the kind that made you laugh and wince at the same time. They'd ask my advice. Luis wanted to know if he should take a promotion at work that meant more travel. Maria says it's good money, but Sophia barely sees me as it is. I said, money doesn't tuck her in at night. You do. He nodded. Took the job that kept him local. A kid named Deshaun, an army infantryman, asked me how to propose to his girlfriend. I want to do it right, Pop. Not just some restaurant thing. I said, what does she love? Sunrises. She's always taking pictures. I said, then take her somewhere high, where she can see the whole world, and ask her right as the sun comes up. Make the moment as big as the question. He did. She said yes. I got an invitation to the wedding. One Saturday in September. We were working on House 14, a duplex for 2 single veterans who'd served together and wanted to stay close. A young guy named Marcus, maybe 30, sat down next to me while I flipped burgers. He said, Pop, are you coming to my daughter's baptism next month? I paused, set the spatula down. You want me there? He looked at me like I'd asked a stupid question. Hell yes, I want you there. Your family. I didn't know what to say. He clapped me on the shoulder. You're on the list, old man. Second pew, left side. Don't be late. That night, lying in bed, staring at the ceiling, I thought about that word, Pop. 29 veterans had called me that now. Some jokingly, some seriously. All of them mean it. I'd spent 71 years trying to earn one person's respect, my daughter's, and I'd failed. But 29 warriors I'd never met before this year had given it to me freely, for showing up, for listening, for caring. The word didn't hurt anymore. It felt right. I didn't slam the phone. I just set it down like closing a book I no longer need to reread. She called 11 months after I'd handed her the envelope. I was sitting on my porch, drinking coffee, watching the leaves fall. My phone buzzed. I looked at the screen. Emily. I almost didn't answer, but I did. Hello? Her voice came through shaky, tearful. Dad, please don't hang up. I didn't say anything. Just wait. I've been thinking about everything, about what happened, about what you said, and I want to start over. I want to fix this. I sipped my coffee. Fix what? Exactly? Us. Our relationship. I know I messed up. I know I should have been there. I was selfish. I see that now. Do you? Yes. And I'm sorry. I'm really, really sorry. Can we try again? Please. I set my coffee cup down on the armrest of my chair. I said, Emily, what do you want? What do you mean? I mean, what do you want from me? Right now. In this phone call. Silence. Then quietly, I want my dad back. I said, the father you knew is gone. Her voice broke. Don't say that. It's true. The man who paid for everything, who made excuses for you, who waited by the phone hoping you'd call, he died on an operating table 6 months ago. The man sitting here now already has a family. I'm your family. You were my family when it was convenient, when you needed money or a safety net, or someone to blame when things went wrong. But when I needed you, when I actually needed you, you chose a beach party. She was crying now. Hard. I made a mistake. People make mistakes. I said, you're right. They do. And this is mine to fix, not yours. What does that mean? It means I spent 71 years trying to earn your respect, and I finally realized I don't need it anymore. You're being cruel. I said, no, honey. Boundaries aren't cruel. They're just late. I can't believe you're doing this. After everything we've been through. I said, everything I've been through. You were along for the ride. She went quiet. I could hear her breathing, ragged and angry. Finally, she said, you're going to die alone. I said, I thought I did that already, in a hospital room, while you danced. She hung up. I sat there holding the phone, looking at the screen until it went dark. Then I set it down on the table next to my coffee, gently. No anger, no regret, just closure. The leaves kept falling. The wind kept blowing. And, somewhere across town, 29 veterans I now called family were probably grilling, laughing, living in homes they'd earned. I picked up my coffee, took a sip, and felt nothing but peace. Turns out, the best heart surgery was the one no scalpel touched. November again. 1 year since the diagnosis. 1 year since the hospital room and the Instagram posts and the decision that changed everything. I sat in Dr. Chen's office, the same young cardiologist who'd told me I was dying, waiting for the results of my annual checkup. EKG, echocardiogram, stress test, the whole battery. They'd monitored me closely the first 6 months, then eased off as everything stabilized. Dr. Chen walked in with a tablet, smiling. "Mr. Callahan, your new valve is perfect, functioning better than we hoped. Your ejection fraction is 62%. That's better than it was 5 years ago." I said, "What does that mean in English?" "It means your heart is strong. Whatever you're doing, keep it up." I thought about Saturdays, the grills, the laughter. The veterans called me Pop, the baptisms and weddings and backyard barbecues where I was always invited, always wanted, always welcome. I said, "I stopped carrying dead weight, Doc." He laughed, thinking I meant diet or exercise. I didn't correct him. He went through the rest of the results. Blood pressure is good, cholesterol managed, no signs of complications, scar tissue healing clean. You're cleared for normal activity, no restrictions. Just keep taking your medications and come back in 6 months. We shook hands. I walked out of the clinic into cold November air that smelled like wood smoke and coming snow. I sat in my truck for a minute before starting the engine. 1 year ago, I was terrified, alone, waiting for a surgery that might kill me, staring at photos of a daughter who'd chosen tequila shots over my life. Now, I am healthy, surrounded, loved by people who'd earned the right to love me. I pulled out my phone, scrolled through my messages. "Luis, Pop, Maria's making tamales Sunday. You better show up." "Deshaun, closing on our first house next week. Are you free to come see it?" "Marcus, baptism pics attached. You look good holding babies, old man." 27 unread messages from the group chat the veterans had started. Memes, football arguments, someone asking for advice on changing a diaper. I typed into the chat. "Checkup went great. Heart solid. Thanks for asking." Within seconds, replies flooded in. "That's our Pop. Never doubted it, sir. You're too mean to die. Love you, old man." I smiled, put the phone away, started the truck, drove past the hospital where I'd almost died, past the house on Maple Street where I'd raised Emily alone, past all the ghosts, toward the future I'd built with my own 2 hands and $847,000 I'd earned the right to spend however I wanted. The check engine light wasn't on. The heater worked. The radio played something I recognized, and for the first time in 71 years, I felt like I was exactly where I was supposed to be, heading home to people who actually wanted me there. Forgiveness doesn't mean reopening the door you finally learned to lock. December came quiet and cold. Snow fell steadily on a Saturday afternoon. I wasn't at a build site. We'd paused for winter and would start again in March. I was home, alone, with time to think. That's when the guilt tried to creep back in. I sat at my kitchen table with a legal pad and a pen. I started writing. "Dear Emily, I want you to understand why I made the choice I made. Not because I need your forgiveness, but because maybe someday you'll have children of your own, and you'll realize what it means to give everything and receive nothing." I wrote for an hour, 2 pages, front and back, every reason, every justification, every moment that led to the envelope and the $1 inheritance. I explained the hospital, the Instagram posts, the olive oil, the $60,000 ask. I explained that I didn't hate her. I just couldn't keep lighting myself on fire to keep her warm. I explained that love without respect isn't love at all. It's just dependency dressed up as family. When I finished, I read it over 3 times. It was clear, fair, true, and completely unnecessary. I folded the pages. I walked outside to the fire pit in my backyard. The snow had stopped. The air was still. I laid the letter on the grate, struck a match, held it to the corner of the paper. The flame caught, spread, consumed 2 pages of explanation that Emily would never read and didn't deserve. I watched the smoke rise into the gray sky, watched the words blacken and curl and turn to ash. When it was gone, I said out loud to no one, "Some things are better left as ashes." The guilt didn't creep back after that, because I realized something standing there in the cold, watching smoke disappear into nothing. Forgiveness isn't about them. It's about you. And I'd already forgiven myself for being a good father to someone who became a bad daughter. I'd already forgiven myself for expecting loyalty from someone who only understood transactions. I'd already forgiven myself for taking 71 years to learn that love is a choice people make every single day. And Emily had stopped choosing me a long time ago. I didn't need to send her a letter. I didn't need her to understand. I just needed to stop waiting for her to care. I went inside, made coffee, sat by the window and watched the snow start again. And I felt lighter than I had in decades. Not because I'd explained myself, but because I'd finally stopped needing to. I'm 71, and I'm just getting started living for the people who live for me. If you've made it this far, I want to say something directly to you. Man to man, father to father. If they only show up when they need something, they were never really yours. I know that hurts to hear. I know you've spent years, maybe decades, making excuses. She's busy. He's got his own life. They'll come around. When they have kids, they'll understand. When I'm gone, they'll regret it. Stop. Stop waiting for people to see your value. Stop giving pieces of yourself to people who treat you like an ATM with a heartbeat. Stop setting yourself on fire to keep someone warm who wouldn't cross the street to put out your flames. Your time is finite. Your money is limited. Your heart can only take so many breaks before it stops healing right. Guard them. Guard them like you guarded your country, your family, your pride, your word. Build your table with people who'd carry you out of a burning building, not post selfies while it burns. I spent my entire adult life being the perfect father to someone who became a stranger. And when I finally stopped, when I finally said, enough, do you know what happened? I found a family that actually wanted me, not for what I could give them, for who I was. 29 warriors who call me Pop and mean it, who invited me to their tables, who asks for my advice and actually takes it, who shows up. That's the difference. Showing up isn't hard. It's a choice. And people who love you make that choice without being asked. If you're sitting there right now wondering if you were too harsh, too cold, too unforgiving, let me tell you something. Boundaries aren't cruel. They're overdue. You don't owe anyone access to your life just because you share blood. You don't owe anyone your peace, your money, your final years, just because they showed up at your birth or you showed up at theirs. You owe yourself a life surrounded by people who celebrate your character, not just your checkbook. I'm 71 years old. I've got a strong heart, a clear conscience, and a family that actually loves me. I'm just getting started living for the people who live for me. And if you take one thing from my story, let it be this. It's never too late to choose yourself. It's never too late to build something real. And it's never too late to lock the door on people who only knock when they want something. You deserve better. Don't forget that. Blood didn't show up. These warriors did. And that, gentlemen, is the only ending that matters. I sold the house on Maple Street in January. 3 bedrooms, 2 baths. The place where I raised Emily alone. The place where Sarah died. The place where I kept every report card, every photo, every memory of a family that no longer existed. I didn't need it anymore. I bought a smaller place, 2 bedrooms, 1 bath, 10 minutes from Luis and Maria's house, walking distance from 3 other Freedom Forge homes, close to the people who mattered. The day I moved, Luis and Deshawn and Marcus showed up with a truck. Pop, you're not lifting anything, Luis said. Doctor's orders. I said, I'm fine. Maria handed me a beer. Sit down, old man. Let them work. So I sat on the tailgate and watched them carry my life into a new beginning. When they were done, Luis asked what I wanted to do with my medals. I had them in a shadow box, Bronze Star, Meritorious Service medals, campaign ribbons from Desert Storm. They'd been on my wall for 20 years. I said, hang them in your house. He stared at me. Pop, these are yours. I said, and I'm giving them to you. You've earned them more than I ever did. His eyes welled up. He didn't argue. That night, they all came over. Luis and Maria, Deshawn and his fiancée, Marcus and his wife and daughter. Tom brought steaks. Someone else brought beer. We filled my little house with laughter and noise and life. Sophia climbed into my lap and asked me to read her a book. I did. Good Night Moon, the same one I'd read to Emily 1,000 times. But this time, it didn't hurt. This time, it felt right. When everyone left, I stood on my porch and looked at the quiet street. Lights on in houses where people I loved were tucking in children, climbing into bed with people they'd chosen, living lives they'd earned. I thought about Emily, briefly, without anger, and I realized something. Home isn't where your blood remembers you. It's where your character is celebrated. I went inside, locked the door, turned off the lights, and slept better than I had in 30 years, because I was finally, truly home.